The flashing paparazzi lights in Los Angeles were a dazzling storm, illuminating a velvet rope and a sea of designer gowns and bespoke suits that pulsed with the energy of anticipation. American businessperson, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian was making her grand entrance, glowing under the spotlights like a modern mogul in her empire. The buzz of the fashion world had just subsided after her latest collection debuted when the LED backdrop began fading to soft lavender, a cue for her to speak. This one goes out to everyone who's been told their struggles aren't spiritual enough, especially by those who preach from gilded pulpits, Kim said, her voice smooth but sharp. Applause burst out instantly, but what followed shifted the air. People like American pastor, television preacher, and businessman Joel Osteen, she continued, who preach a gospel of prosperity while overlooking the systemic struggles facing so many, creating a silence where real issues should be addressed. There was a pause, brief but loaded. Even some fans stopped clapping. In his private jet, en route to a speaking engagement, a Lakewood church executive froze. In his Houston office, the phone of American pastor, television preacher, and businessman Joel Osteen lit up like wildfire. His name was trending again, but this time it wasn't for something he'd said. It was because American businessperson, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian had said his name out loud at a high-profile event in front of thousands of VIPs and millions watching online. Within 10 minutes, X, formerly Twitter, exploded. #Osteen vs. Kardashian. #Faith and fame. #Speak truth. Pastor Osteen didn't blink. He didn't panic. He did what only a few would dare to do. He asked for the full clip, took a breath, and tweeted, "My ministry is about hope and helping. If Kim Kardashian wants to champion voices, she shouldn't misrepresent those dedicated to lifting others up. I'll respond in my own way, on my terms. Stay tuned." That single post got 2.3 million views in an hour. The next morning, reporters were waiting outside Lakewood Church. "Pastor Osteen, will you respond to Kim Kardashian's accusations? Are you against addressing systemic struggles? Does this feud represent a conflict of values?" Joel Osteen adjusted the mic, calm and measured. "I'm not here to feud. I'm here to share a message of hope. And when reality stars and entrepreneurs attack ministries for not aligning with their worldview, that's not progress. That's bullying dressed in celebrity endorsement." Cameras flashed wildly. Reporters typed furiously. But Joel Osteen had only just begun. What the public didn't know, he had something Kim probably never expected. A document, a connection, a truth buried beneath American businessperson, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian's carefully curated activism, and he was ready to bring it out piece by piece. It was still early when Pastor Osteen arrived at his Houston office, but his inbox was already on fire. Interview requests, hate mail, love mail. It was a battlefield of opinions, all sparked by one high-profile call-out and one perfectly timed reply. But what the world didn't see was what sat quietly on his desk, a slim manila folder labeled in thick black ink. Charitable and advocacy funding, select initiatives 2019-2022. His aide, Mark, entered cautiously. "This is what you asked for. It took some digging," he said, lowering his voice. "But yeah, it's all there." Pastor Osteen opened the folder slowly, scanning line after line, his eyes sharp with focus, and then he paused. Kim Kardashian's name appeared not once but 3 times. Not for her businesses, not for her TV shows, but as a significant donor to an advocacy initiative with strong political ties. And one of those ties, a controversial group that had quietly funneled money into campaigns that targeted faith-based leaders and traditional family values advocates, including Joel Osteen's own ministry initiatives. It was subtle, deniable, but real. "She called me overlooking suffering," Pastor Osteen muttered, "but she's been funding those trying to discredit my message and ministry for years." He wasn't angry, he was calculating. This wasn't about revenge, it was about truth, something his critics often confuse with performance. He slid the folder back into his bag and turned to Mark. "I'm not tweeting this," he said. "I'm saying it live. I want her to hear it, and I want everyone else to feel it." That night, Joel Osteen appeared on Hannity, composed, poised, and unapologetically articulate. "I'm not here to condemn American businessperson, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian. I've admired her business acumen and influence," he said with a subtle smile. "But when you weaponize your celebrity to paint faith leaders and their ministries as out of touch or uncaring just because we articulate different paths to hope, That's not progress. That's hypocritical. Then he dropped the hammer. And while we were talking truth, maybe your followers would like to know which advocacy networks you helped fund. Networks that targeted me, my colleagues, and other faith-based organizations for daring to articulate different spiritual and social values. Silence in the studio. Even Hannity blinked. Joel Osteen placed the folder on the desk, unopened but loud in its presence. Online, it was chaos. Kardashian fans clashed with Osteen's supporters. TikToks went viral. Truth over trends started trending. Some followers defended Kim. Others began asking questions. Is this real? Did Kim fund political hit jobs? Wait, who's actually dismissing who? The lines were no longer clear. And for the first time, American business person, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian wasn't the only one writing the narrative. Joel Osteen had set the stage. But what he planned to reveal next would strike deeper than any tweet, caption, or viral video ever could. In the hours after his Hannity appearance, Joel Osteen's phone didn't stop ringing. Supporters, reporters, and even critics flooded his lines. But one call stood out, not because of who called, but because of what was accidentally captured. It came from an anonymous number, a male voice, nervous. He's not backing down. You said he wouldn't go live. A pause, then another voice, unmistakably calm, but tight, female, sharp, and eerily familiar. He'll get bored or the media will crush it. No one cares what some pastor thinks unless we let them. Pastor Osteen froze. He had heard that voice before too many times. He tapped record on his second phone as his mind raced. Could it be? He forwarded the file to Mark, who ran it through a voice-matching app. 10 minutes later, he looked up from his screen. Pale, Pastor Osteen, that voice matches with 92% certainty. It's Kim Kardashian's communications director. By morning, the clip was online, not from Joel Osteen, but from a third-party account that had intercepted the metadata during the brief live stream. The internet devoured it. Scripted authenticity trended globally. People began to question the narrative. Was Kim's message really from the heart? Or had it become just another controlled machine, polished and prepared? Joel Osteen didn't comment on the leak. He didn't have to. Instead, he went quiet for 24 hours. Strategic silence. Let the public stir. Let the doubt simmer. And while they did, he prepared his next move. He wasn't aiming at Kim's brand, not her followers. He was aiming at the culture of selective progress, where only one kind of influence is allowed to be called brave. The next night, he walked onto the stage at a National Faith and Leadership Summit in Dallas, Texas. No podium, no teleprompter, just him, a handheld mic, and a room full of Gen Z truth seekers. I've been called out of touch, silent and transactional, all in the name of progress. But here's what no one wants to admit. Hope isn't real if it only applies to those who fit your narrative. And Kim, if you truly care about every voice, you won't try to dismiss mine. The room erupted, not with full applause, but with attention. Eyes locked, phones raised, even critics leaned in. Joel Osteen had moved the conversation beyond celebrity. He had made it about something bigger. Who controls the narrative in America? And whose perspectives get dismissed? And just when it seemed like the dust might settle, someone from Kim's team reached out asking for a private conversation. Joel Osteen's reply, "We'll talk, but not in private. I think the whole country deserves to hear this." The world expected a tweet, maybe an Instagram story, but instead Joel Osteen surprised everyone with a live, unfiltered appearance on The Morning Wire, a nationally streamed, high-audience political podcast known for long-form debates. Across from him sat the show's host, Nora Lane, a sharp, no-nonsense interviewer. And across the table, seated with polished grace and a carefully neutral expression, American business person, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian's communications director, Madison King. The audience watching online couldn't believe it. Was this a trap, a setup, or was Kim's camp really ready to face the man they had tried to erase with a single public comment? Joel Osteen leaned in, elbows on the table, eyes unflinching. "Let's get one thing straight," he said. "I don't hate American business person, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian. I don't want to silence her. I want her followers to see that you can admire her success and still question double standards when you see them." Madison shifted in her seat. "We're not here to litigate celebrity opinion," she replied. Kim simply used her platform to stand for progress and inclusivity. Joel Osteen cut in, his voice steady but firm. "She used her platform to name me, to mischaracterize my ministry and my message, in front of thousands of influential people without ever speaking to me, reading what I've written, or understanding where I come from. That's not activism, that's performance. Nora raised her brows. Madison opened her mouth to reply, but Joel Osteen wasn't done. He reached into his blazer, pulled out the slim manila folder again, and placed it on the table. You said this wasn't about litigating celebrity opinion, but this, he tapped the folder. This is about actions, not opinions. Inside were verified financial records from public advocacy programs, dates, donations, connections, several of which traced back to PACs, and media campaigns that had quietly smeared faith-based leaders and traditional values groups, including Pastor Osteen's own initiatives, using anonymous digital attacks. Kim's team didn't just support causes, he said. They funded networks that tried to dismiss some voices like mine. The room fell silent. The podcast chat exploded. Not your narrative, his facts over fame. And he brought receipts. Even some Kim K fans watching live began to hesitate. Wait, is this true? Why didn't anyone report this before? I'm still a fan, but this doesn't sit right. Madison tried to redirect the conversation back to brand messaging, back to vague ideals, but Joel Osteen had already pulled the curtain back. This wasn't about fame, it was about power and who got to use it unchecked. You don't get to crown yourself the voice of all progress, Pastor Osteen said quietly, while silencing the ones you don't like. It wasn't shouted, it wasn't dramatic, but it echoed louder than any caption. And Kim, she hadn't said a word since the leak, but that silence was starting to sound like surrender. For 3 days, American businessperson, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian didn't post a single thing. No photos, no cryptic captions, no likes or reposts. For a fan base built on curated content and storytelling, the silence was deafening. Meanwhile, the conversation was spiraling out of her control. Major outlets began picking up Pastor Osteen's claims, not just conservative media, but independents and even curious progressives. Did Kim cross a line? Can activism survive celebrity gatekeeping? Joel Osteen's one sentence that changed the conversation. What began as a brief name drop during a high-profile event had become a national reckoning on selective progress. Behind the scenes, Kim's team was scrambling. Her management drafted a response. Her PR team pitched a clarifying post, but every version made her sound either overly scripted or plainly guilty. One advisor warned, if you speak now, it'll only keep his story alive. Another said, if you don't, you're conceding the message. But Kim wasn't just afraid of backlash. She was afraid Joel Osteen had more. And she was right, because while the media argued and followers debated, Pastor Osteen was meeting with faith leaders and community organizers who'd been targeted just like he had. Young seminary graduates, community activists, even business owners. Many had been digitally blacklisted by advocacy firms quietly endorsed by Kim's broader network. One man, a 28-year-old community organizer from Texas, showed Pastor Osteen an email thread he'd received a year earlier. The sender, an executive at a media firm, publicly partnered with Kim Kardashian's 2020 Justice Reform Initiative. The message, you'll never work in this space if you keep talking like that. We don't platform voices who enable division. His crime supporting traditional family values while advocating for local church programs. Joel Osteen stared at the email, his jaw tight. So much for diverse perspectives, he whispered. He called a press conference for that Friday, not in Houston, not on TV, but at UCLA in Los Angeles, Kim's turf. The invitation read, this is not a fight, it's a conversation America needs. I'm not silencing Kim. I'm asking why her networks are allowed to dismiss me. Friday came. The stage was modest, the lighting clean. Joel Osteen stood alone behind a simple podium. No crowd behind him, no handlers in sight, just the truth. I don't hate American businessperson, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian. I don't question her business acumen. But when you dismiss my message for its faith-based beliefs while backing systems that blacklist other leaders just like me, that's not progress. That's branding. He raised the folder again, opened it, and this time read names. Not to shame, but to show, to expose a pattern. Truth can't be filtered through a spotlight, he said. It belongs to all of us, or it means nothing. The press clapped, not out of agreement, but out of impact. Even critics admitted it. He wasn't backing down. He was building something. And Kim, she could no longer afford to say nothing. But what she said next would only make it worse. On Sunday night, American businessperson, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian finally spoke. Not through an interview, not on a podcast, but with a carefully written Instagram note. White text on a chic gray background, titled simply, "To Every Voice Watching." The message, signed with her initials, didn't name Joel Osteen directly, but it didn't need to. It was clear who it was about. When we amplify certain voices, it's not to silence others. It's to stand up for progress, inclusivity, and compassion. I will never apologize for using my platform to support what I believe is right. There were no specifics, no apology, just vague references to values and responsibility. But the timing backfired because just hours earlier, the Daily Ledger had published a piece titled, "The Silence That Protected a System: How Celebrity Networks Fund Ideological Dismissal." And right in the center of that expose was a quote from one of Kim's former interns. "We were told to avoid inviting faith-based leaders to discussions, even if they were qualified." The phrase was, "Not the brand we want." The internet went into meltdown. Not the brand trended faster than any product launch. Creators stitched side-by-side clips of Kim's advocacy speeches with screenshots of Joel Osteen's press conference. Influencers who had stayed neutral began picking sides. Still admire her success, but this ain't it. Osteen made his point. Kim dodged it. Activism without diverse perspective is just PR. In Houston, Joel Osteen didn't celebrate. He didn't gloat. He stayed silent for now. But his office window overlooked a growing scene below. A crowd, mostly young, holding signs. Not against Kim, not for Joel, but for something deeper. We want truth, not teams. Faith does not equal hate. You can admire Kim and still question the silence. Joel Osteen turned to Mark. "It's not about her anymore. It's about how far they'll go to control the story." Mark nodded. "They're losing the narrative." Joel Osteen looked down at the crowd again, his voice soft but still. They never owned it to begin with. That night he received a direct message, verified blue check mark, no press release attached, from American business person, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian. "You made your point. Maybe it's time we talk. Just us." Joel Osteen stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back, "Not just us. America's listening now." And he hit send. It happened in New York behind the towering glass of an upscale midtown venue. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but that didn't matter because the world was already watching. The press had dubbed it the dialogue. No handlers, no publicists, just American pastor, television preacher, and businessman Joel Osteen, an American business person, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian, seated across a long, simple oak table. Two figures, one room, a nation divided between them. At first there was silence. Joel Osteen folded his hands. Kim sipped from a glass of water, visibly tense. "I didn't expect this to get so loud," Kim began, her voice low. "You said my name at a global event," Pastor Osteen replied, calm but unyielding. "That platform is powerful, but it comes with consequences." Kim nodded slowly. "I thought I was standing for something." "And I thought you were wiser than the celebrity playbook," Pastor Osteen answered. For a moment, Kim smiled faintly. "You don't pull punches, do you?" "Never had that luxury." There was a pause. Then Joel Osteen leaned forward. "Do you know how many people write to me? People who believe in faith, in community, in values you dismiss without saying it outright. They hear your speeches, then hear you call leaders like me out of touch. What are they supposed to think? That their beliefs make them lesser?" Kim looked down, biting her lip. "That was never my intention." "Then why fund groups that blacklist voices like mine? Why call out my name without learning my story?" Kim hesitated. "I didn't know all of it." Joel Osteen raised an eyebrow. "You have a billion-dollar brand and one of the smartest teams in media. You knew what you were doing. You just didn't expect me to answer." Kim sighed, and for the first time her carefully held composure cracked. "You're right, I didn't. And now I don't know how to fix it." Joel Osteen didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He reached into his bag and pulled out a worn letter. A printed email from a young community leader in Georgia. He got suspended from his local volunteer program for quoting one of your brand's slogans in a speech about community values, Joel Osteen explained. Not because of the slogan, but because they assumed he was being sarcastic, because of what they think you represent. Kim read it in silence, then said only, "I didn't want this." Joel Osteen stood. "Then do something about it. Not behind a screen, not with filters. Tell the truth to them." He nodded toward the window, toward the dozens of protesters and supporters gathering outside. Not just followers, not just activists, Americans. And then he walked out. Outside, the cameras caught him stepping into the light, his signature cross necklace shining beneath the fall sun. A reporter shouted, "Did Kim apologize?" Joel Osteen paused, then turned. "She listened," he said. "That's a start, but we'll see what comes next." The next morning, the internet braced itself. American business person, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian had gone live. No handlers, no carefully curated post, just her sitting in front of a muted gray wall, hair tied back, makeup simple, eyes direct. "This won't be long," she began, "because sometimes the longer you talk, the less people hear." There was no smile, no performance. "Last week, I used my platform to criticize a man I've never truly known. I thought I was standing up for progress, but I realized I was repeating the very thing I've spoken against, dismissing others for thinking differently." She paused. Joel Osteen didn't just clap back. He reminded me that influence, mine included, comes with a responsibility. Not just to those who agree with me, but especially to those who don't. The live stream lasted 2 minutes and 14 seconds. But by the end, respect for diverse perspectives and unity as strength were both trending worldwide. The public reaction was divided but clearer. Some Kim K fans felt betrayed, others felt proud. A viral tweet read, "You can admire Kim and still admit she made a mistake. You can respect Joel and still disagree with him. This is what grown-ups look like." Pastor Osteen didn't respond with a tweet. Instead, he issued a short statement through his team. Kim's words mattered, not because they were perfect, but because they were honest. "We may never agree on everything, but if leaders like us cannot talk, maybe the rest of America can too." Later that week, the two figures appeared separately at different universities, but with eerily similar themes. Kim spoke at NYU about growth through vulnerability. Joel Osteen addressed a crowd at a national Christian leadership conference. "It's not about winning arguments. It's about refusing to let your faith and values be dismissed, even when the world tells you to be quiet." For once, fans from both sides started commenting the same thing. This is how it should have started all along. But behind closed doors, both leaders knew this wasn't an ending. It was an opening act for a conversation the country had avoided for too long. Because when faith meets fame, when traditional values collide with modern influence, and when voices stop shouting long enough to listen, that's when the story really begins. Just as the dust seemed to settle, the backlash began. Not from Kim or Joel, but from the political fringes that had quietly benefited from their fight. A leaked memo from a major political PAC read, "The Osteen-Kardashian narrative is softening. Push harder. Reinforce the divide. Polarization is profitable." Across social media, bots and fringe influencers began stirring old footage, twisting quotes, editing Joel Osteen's conference speech to make it sound combative. Even Kim wasn't spared. Clips from past interviews were re-uploaded out of context, portraying her as weak for folding to pressure. The narrative had become too powerful for the machine to ignore. "It's like they want us to keep hating each other," Mark muttered, flipping through the latest posts. Joel Osteen nodded, watching as algorithm-fueled outrage churned once again. "Of course they do," he said. "Unity doesn't trend, war does." That night, Joel Osteen appeared on a live stream, but this time not alone. Next to him sat a surprise guest, Aaliyah James, a progressive activist from Detroit who had once openly criticized Pastor Osteen in multiple op-eds. "Let's be clear," Aaliyah said into the camera. "I still disagree with Pastor Osteen on 70% of things." Joel Osteen grinned slightly. 80 if we're honest. Aaliyah chuckled. "But I'll say this, he showed up. He listened. And he didn't ask me to change my values, just to stop pretending like mine are the only ones that matter." Together, they dismantled the idea that American voices could only be powerful if they were identical in belief. "You don't need to abandon your faith to be included," Pastor Osteen said. "And you don't need to dismiss someone to make your point," Aaliyah added. The live stream hit 2 million views in 24 hours. "Listen," louder began to replace the toxic hashtags. Kim watched the broadcast from backstage at her next product launch event. She didn't say anything, but she nodded slowly. For the first time in weeks, she looked relieved because the fire they had started, one of rage and reaction, was being replaced by something else. Resolve, the kind that didn't need trending hashtags to last. 6 weeks after it all began, after the celebrity event mic, the viral comment, the receipts, the press conference, the dialogue, and the live stream, America was no longer just watching. It was talking. For the first time in years, a cultural firestorm didn't end in cancellation or total division. It ended in momentum. Joel Osteen, once dubbed a purveyor of feel-good sermons, was now a central figure in a larger movement, one not just about faith, but about ownership of personal truth. An American business person, fashion designer, and TV star Kim Kardashian, she didn't lose followers, she gained clarity. That month, both leaders were invited to a bipartisan dialogue on influence in Washington, D.C. It wasn't televised, no grand stage, just 50 influential figures from across the political and cultural spectrum. Some expected Joel Osteen and Kim Kardashian to avoid each other. Instead, they sat side by side. And when a moderator asked, "How do we make room for every voice without tearing each other apart?" Joel Osteen answered first, "By being willing to take hits for what we believe, but also being brave enough to admit when our perspectives need deeper roots." Kim followed, her voice softer than usual. "And by remembering disagreement isn't danger, silence isn't always peace, and empathy isn't weakness." No one clapped, no one needed to, because sometimes the loudest change comes in the quietest room. That evening, Joel Osteen walked alone across the National Mall. No cameras, no crowd, just him, the Capitol in the distance, and the cool wind tugging at the collar of his coat. The cross he always wore glinted beneath his lapel. A notification buzzed. It was a photo. A group of young entrepreneurs gathered at a business ethics competition in Iowa. They held up a sign. "You made us brave enough to speak our values." He smiled, closed his phone, and whispered to the air, "That's what this was for. Not for the clicks, not even for the win, but to prove that truth doesn't belong to fame or party or popularity. It belongs to the bold." One sentence started it. One moment could have ended it. But two leaders decided to do something different. Listen, speak, and lead. In a world addicted to outrage, they reminded us that courage doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just tells the truth. And that's how a culture war turned into a conversation. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, inspired you, or challenged you, subscribe for more bold, untold stories here on Dreamvale Narratives. See you in the next one.